What's up everyone and welcome back to the World History Channel. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button today. Let's get started. 15 amazing facts about Madam C.J. Walker. America's first millionaire woman, Madam C.J. Walker, was an African-American entrepreneur in the early 1900s. She was born Sarah Breedlove. Walker became the first female self-made millionaire in the United States during a time of Jim Crow laws and severe racial and gender inequality. Her company, Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company, produced and sold hair care items for African-American customers. Sarah Breedlove was born on a cotton plantation in Louisiana in 1867. Owen and Miranda, her parents, were once slaves. She was, in fact, the only free child born to her parents. Her older siblings were born prior to the Emancipation Proclamation. She was raised by her sister Lovenia after her parents passed away when she was young. Madam C.J. Walker was an all-around badass, had multiple marriages, her third husband's last name was Walker, was a steadfast community activist, and so on. You won't want to miss out on Madam C.J. Walker's fascinating life. Grandmother of hustle. She was America's first self-made millionaire woman. Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing, which goes by Madam C.J. Walker's name, started out as a modest door-to-door and mail-order business in Denver, Colorado. Walker's nationwide expansion was made possible by her husband's advertising sales skills and her strong work ethic. It quickly spread to Indianapolis, Indiana, Harlem, New York, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The company trained and employed 20,000 women across the country at its peak. Walker became the first self-made millionaire in the nation, and not just an African-American woman. There is no royal flower-strewn path to success, Madam C.J. Walker once said. And if there is, I have not discovered it. If I have accomplished anything in life, it is because I was willing to put in a lot of effort. She truly practiced what she preached because her business was worth more than $1 million in 1919 currency when she passed away. She was one of the most successful African-American business owners of all time. Madam C.J. Walker passed away on May 25, 1919, at the age of 51. She had kidney problems and high blood pressure. Her estate was worth $600,000 at the time, or $8 million in 2017 dollars, making her the country's wealthiest African-American woman at the time. Her influence on society can only be described as Oprah-esque. Walker encouraged her fellow female businesswomen to achieve financial independence and organized classes to assist them. She thought it was her responsibility to help other women achieve their dreams and share her success with the world. She mass-produced products for black women's hair care. It is not true that Madam C.J. Walker was the inventor of straightening combs and chemical perms. She did, however, develop the Walker system, a collection of products specifically formulated for African-American hair. Products like iron combs, shampoo, and pomade made up the system. There weren't many stores in the early 1900s that sold hair products made just for black women, Walker's target market. Additionally, there was without a doubt no fleet of saleswomen distributing these goods throughout the United States. Madam C.J. Walker filled this void and achieved her own success. 62 years after Walker's death, Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing continued to operate until 1981. Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Culture, a limited edition collaboration between Sundial Brands and Sephora, was released in 2016. Her greatest rival was her mentor. Madam C.J. Walker began working for fellow African-American Annie Turnbow Malone in 1904. On commission, Walker sold Poro, a brand of Malone's hair products. She learned how to market products like hair straighteners, moisturizing oils, and a hair growth serum. Walker left the company after having a disagreement with Malone. Shortly after their disagreement, Walker launched her own line of similar products using her own tried-and-true recipes. Malone quickly became Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing's biggest rival as she became more popular because they both targeted the same demographic. It is said that their personal relationship never recovered. She was orphaned at 7 years old, married at 14, and refused to accept the circumstances of her life. When Madam C.J. Walker was Sarah Breedlove, she married Moses McWilliams, her first husband, when she was 14. She lost her father when she was 7 years old, and her mother died of cholera a few years earlier. Breedlove moved in with her older sister Lovenia, who was married to the irritable Jesse Powell. Lovenia was also her sister. It is believed that Breedlove agreed to marry McWilliams so young to avoid Powell's cruel treatment. Lelia McWilliams, Breedlove's only child, was born to her when she was 18 years old. Breedlove married twice more after her husband passed away 2 years later. Charles Joseph Walker, her previous husband, worked as a newspaper advertising salesman. His name was taken by Breedlove and her daughter, who later became Alelia Walker. Sarah Breedlove went from working as a sharecropper on a cotton plantation to selling Annie Tumbo Malone's beauty products on commission over the course of her career. The items that eventually became Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company's foundation were influenced by those products. She only employed female sales representatives for her products. Her fleet of female sales agents was one factor in Madam C.J. Walker's success. Each received extensive instruction on how to use the Walker system, as well as marketing and sales strategies. Over 20,000 women all over the world received instruction in how to use and market Walker's products. Since the majority of salespeople at the time were men, this was unusual. However, Walker was wise to believe that women would respond more favorably to sales representatives of the same gender in order to reach her female customer base. A black satchel to carry the samples and products was given to each of her saleswomen, along with a black skirt and white blouse. In order to support one another, Walker's saleswomen were organized into statewide groups. Walker's sales base quickly expanded into Costa Rica, Panama, Cuba, Haiti, and Jamaica as a result of Walker's successful strategies. She didn't start her company until she was 38 years old. Madam C.J. Walker rose from cotton sharecropper to wealthy businesswoman over the course of her life. She worked as a laundress among other labor-intensive jobs in the interim. After dealing with scalp and hair issues for decades, she eventually started her own business at the age of 38. She used the knowledge she had gained from selling hair products made by another woman to start her own business. She demonstrates that you can still pursue your passion at any age. She was a generous fundraiser. Madam C.J. Walker started giving back to causes she believed in once her business was successful. Additionally, she stood by them wholeheartedly. She contributed funds to the NAACP's anti-lynching fund, $1,000 to the construction of a YMCA building for the black community of Indianapolis. Keep in mind that the YMCA was not racially integrated at the time, and a scholarship to the Tuskegee Institute. In addition, Walker gave the largest individual donation to a group working to preserve Frederick Douglass's former Anacostia home and supported the arts. Walker left over $100,000 to various organizations, including orphanages, in her will. In 1917, she went to the White House to ask for a bill against lynching. Over 3 dozen black people were brutally murdered in East Tennessee in 1917 by a group of white residents. Illinois, St. Louis, a group of leaders from Harlem, New York, put together a petition in response to this for a federal anti-lynching bill. One of the signers of this petition was Madam C.J. Walker, and she and a number of others took it to President Woodrow Wilson at the White House. Sadly, the bill was not approved. W.E.B. and Booker T. Washington were among her friends. Du Bois, Mary McLeod Bethune, and others. Madam C.J. Walker moved her headquarters from Indianapolis to the Harlem area of New York City as her business grew in popularity. She became politically active following her move and advocated for black economic empowerment and rights. She became friends with Booker T. while she was in Harlem. W.E.B. Washington, D.C., Mary McLeod Bethune, and Du Bois, both of whom fought for equality and change in society. Naturally, Walker also participated actively in politics. She organized one of the nation's first national gatherings of businesswomen. Women were encouraged to be independent by Madam C.J. Walker. In addition to employing them as salespeople, she organized local and national groups of female businesswomen in the hope that their camaraderie would boost their collective strength and success. She organized the first National Beauty Culturists and Benevolent Association of Madam C. Conference in 1917. J. Walker employees. It is believed that the conference, which was held in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was one of the first national gatherings of female entrepreneurs in the United States. Walker was unquestionably a pioneer. She left a legacy that will last between 1916 and 1918. Madam C.J. Walker commissioned the construction of Villa Luro. It was designed by Vertner Tandy, the first African-American architect registered in the state of New York, and is in Irvington, New York. The Italianate-style villa cost Walker $250,000, or $5.5 million in 2017, to construct. She lavishly decorated the interior and used a portion of the house for meetings on race relations. The house went to Walker's daughter A'Lelia Walker after her death. After that, it was converted into a home for the elderly, and Harold Doley, who established Doley Securities Incorporated, still owns it. In 1976, Villa Luro was included on the National Register of Historic Places. A commemorative postage stamp bearing Madam C.J. Walker's image was issued in 1998. The U.S. That year, the Black Heritage series of stamps issued by the Postal Service featured her. W.E.B. The series also included notables like Du Bois, George Washington Carver, Huddai Leadbelly, and Jesse Owens. The Madam Walker Theater Center replaced her factory. Shortly before her death in 1919, Madam C.J. Walker laid the groundwork for the Walker Building and Theater in Indianapolis, Indiana. The building was meant to be a place where she could make her goods and make art for the African American community in the city. The building is now in the Arts District of Indianapolis. The building quickly became home to the Madam Walker Building Urban Life Center, which is now the Madam Walker Theater Center, after Walker Manufacturing closed its doors in 1981. It has offices, a ballroom, and the 935-seat Walker Theater after being completely restored. On the National Register of Historic Places is the building. She became a member of the National Women's Hall of Fame. Madam C.J. Walker was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1993 in recognition of her contributions to society and the success of her business. She is buried with Maya Angelou and Susan B. Anthony. This honor has gone to Anthony, her friend Mary McLeod Bethune, Juliette Gordon Low, Rosa Parks, Sally Ride, and numerous other heroic women. Her daughter supported the arts, carrying on her mother's legacy. A'Lelia Walker, who was born Lelia McWilliams, was the only child of Madam C.J. Walker. She was born in 1885. A'Lelia succeeded her mother as president of Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing and established herself as a prominent figure in the Harlem arts community. Lelia's Harlem townhouse was frequented by actors, politicians, musicians, artists, and writers who shared her passion for art, classical music, opera, and ragtime jazz. She basically developed an American version of the French Salon, which she aptly dubbed the Dark Tower, where patrons and artists interacted with one another. A'Lelia socialized with artists of the time and provided a safe space for them until her death in 1931.